I I think we're on. Yeah. Hello everyone, and welcome to Coffee with an Archaeologist. What is this, part 4? Um, yeah. Today we'll be discussing the Fenian Cycle and Finn McCool. To be honest, I didn't think we'd actually get this far. But yeah. So how is everyone? I think
Oh,
we're on.
More or less okay.
Joined today by Stu and Skog. Han will be back momentarily, as will Ash. We may have some other people popping in and out.
yeah, I will apologise now for the sound of my printers, but one of them is being very difficult and will probably get turned off soon because it's being a wank.
Naughty printers.
And talking of a wank, as usual, these streams are unadvisable for those of a smaller audience.
Yes, disclaimer, this show is not for children. Despite the fact that I might be making the odd D&D reference, this is not for kids.
D&D's for kids?
Kid. Go play
It's
Fortnite.
supposedly for kids. Yeah, go play Fortnite or Minecraft.
But if you've got a cartoon avatar, that means they'll assume that you are making things for kids. Because kids want to know about, hideous, things from history and, bog bodies.
I think it's part of the FTC rules or something.
The FTC rules are retarded, just straight up. They are basically unenforceable because they were written by boomers.
If I'm in Ireland, and if you wish to prosecute me under FTC rules, just try it.
The EU will get there first.
The IRA, who've just been elected, will get them first.
Did you enjoy the bomb?
Oh Jesus! Let's move on from that very quickly. So,
my face when Sinn Féin won the election.
Today we'll be discussing the Fenian Cycle. So the Fenian Cycle includes stories like that of Finn McCool, the Fianna, the Salmon of Knowledge. Yep. among other things. So we're finally getting to that Salmon of Knowledge we mentioned way back in the early episodes.
Oh.
Yep. So if you've not watched the previous episodes, we're discussing today the Fenian Cycle, which is the third of the 4 cycles of Irish mythology. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll start today with the story of Finn McCool, who, if you're not familiar, is a famous Irish kind of warrior, similar to Cumhaill, but better in some ways. Or
a folklore hero on sort of the same, I guess, tier, if not, actions as sort of like Robin Hood. Or I'm trying to think of any American ones that have that kind of.
Oh, what's the guy who has an ox and he's really tall?
Paul Bunyan.
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, that kind of thing where it's probably based on historical event, but it's probably also been massively exaggerated by storytelling over the ages.
So here's the thing: was Finn McCool, by his name, in fact, cool?
Well, you'll find out momentarily. So, the story of Finn McCool starts with Cormac MacArt, the High King of Ireland. And as we mentioned, I think was it the previous episode? The High King is not necessarily the King of all Ireland.
She's the biggest king with the largest kingdom, generally.
Because there's usually opposition. So it's usually said as High King, in brackets, with opposition, of Ireland, who actually was the one who created the Fianna. And the Fianna is a coalition of clans that protect his kingdom, which would be Ireland, I think in this case. The Fianna was dominated by Clan Lascana. I have no idea how to pronounce some of these words, so I might be butchering them. But you're welcome to have a go at them yourselves because I'm literally reading from the Wikipedia article. But yeah, so led by Cumhaill and Clan Moran, led by Gull and with with Lake as the treasurer. After the Battle of Knock, which is in County Mayo, Cumhaill is killed by the Morna, and the Clan Baska's treasure bag was stolen. Dun dun
Dun,
dun.
dun.
Cumhall's wife, Mjorne, runs away, and has a son, uh, Demna, which is a name we will come to in a moment, who was cared for by two warrior women, Lilt and the druidess Domnil. Domnil? It doesn't say to pronounce that. Domnil. Bjorn marries the king of Kerridges. I don't know why that's there, but okay. There's a random side note in the middle of the text for some reason. So, the rise of Finn McCool. So, Demna got his name, Fionn, because of his fair hair. So, in Old Irish, the word for like blonde would be fair, meaning fair, light haired. Likewise, the word Gaul, foreigner, we have Fear Gaul. So our Fingal comes from that. We have also the Dove Gaul, which is the dark haired foreigners, or literally in modern Irish, the word dove means black. So the black foreigners. So that's specifically referring to hair color, because if you want to make that about skin color, it's actually blue foreigners. So yeah, that gets confusing sometimes. But yeah, so the rise of Fionn. So Demna is also known as Fionn because of his fair hair, and blonde boy. Actually, that's a weird motif because a lot of the Irish heroes seem to always be blonde. Moving on, as soon as he came of age, he set off for revenge of his father, and he killed Lilt and Lucra and retrieved his treasure bag. So he took back the treasure that was stolen. He then gave to the survivors of the Battle of Knock while studying with the poet Finex, yeah. Finn's accidentally. Oh yeah, we'll get to this in a moment. Where Finex is a druid and a poet who was training Fionn and asked him to cook a particular salmon, to which Fionn accidentally tasted first, which we'll get to in a minute, and was admitted to the court of the High King of Tara after passing 3 strenuous tests. After he was admitted, Fionn became the leader of Clan Baskana. So that's how he becomes the leader of the Fianna. The Fianna is like a band of traveling warriors from different clans and stuff. So like a bunch of lads out on the beer, starting fights, taking names. But yeah, so yep. You had the question? No?
No, just saying the lads. Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Me and the lads caving in skulls.
Yeah.
like this is what I mean by making the joke at the beginning that there's going to be a couple of D&D references, because this sounds like a D&D party.
Yeah.
Murder hobos.
It does sound like a bunch of murder hobos. But right, so they've already been given it. Well, Fionn himself was given a quest, his level 1 quest, which is to retrieve the treasure bag, which he finished and handed in, and did a bunch of other quests and became important. So let's talk about where is that? So let's talk about the Salmon of Knowledge for a moment. So the Salmon of Knowledge, the story comes from the boyhood deeds of Fionn. So it's the story of basically Fionn McCool, who is sent off to study under the poet Finglas. Yeah, Finglas. So the salmon is said to have ate 9 hazelnuts from the well of wisdom to give him all of the knowledge in all of the world. And
that, kids, is how Nutella was created.
Mhm.
Although
and the
this
recipe
isn't
for
for kids.
McDonald's chips.
This
But,
isn't for kids.
You know, we said that. Don't worry.
Okay.
Despite the amount of D&D references we're going to make. So the first person who was to taste this fish would gain the power of all the knowledge in all the world. Basically, he gets a max 20 on his stat and his knowledge, his wisdom stat. But so yeah. So the poet / do you have a question?
Oh no, I was gonna say I'd be
Oh,
screwed because I don't like fish.
Oof.
Oh no. Oof.
Well,
Yep. Well, the druid, our poet, Finglas, spent 7 years fishing trying to catch this fish. And eventually he caught the salmon. So he gave it to his subordinate, who was Fionn at the time, and asked him to cook him for him. So Fionn puts the fish on the spade. There, he's cooking it. I don't know where the hell Finglas went. He went off, I don't know, down to the shops for something. I don't know.
Yes, you
He's
do.
not there. He left for some reason. And
he
while
went
he
to
was
get
away,
back a suit.
while he was away for some reason, Fionn is cooking the fish and notices a blister forming on the fish.
Ooh.
So he's like, "Oh, I don't want to, have the fish not perfect when your man gets back because he might get mad and he might fail me in my studies as a it's like learning the poems or something. I don't know why he's studying it under. He's studying it for some reason. So Fionn decides he's going to burst this blister, and he pops it with his thumb. But what happens when hot oil touches your skin?
It burned.
It fucking burns. And what's the normal reaction if you catch your hand on a frying pan or a bit of burning fat on your hand? You put it
Put
straight
your
in your
thumb in your mouth.
Yep. And doing so, Fionn was the first to taste. God
Oh
damn it,
no!
Yes.
So Fionn was the first to taste the salmon and gained all the wisdom in the world and got his max wisdom stat. For context, anyone who's not who can't view what we're looking at the moment, Stu has just shared a picture of
Maybe get scouts put
a
on
trout having a cigarette while riding on a salmon
Just a
with the backpack of the Norwegian salmon ATM from Fan.
This is the salmon of knowledge, as far as I'm concerned. That's what it
Oh.
It costs like
Yeah.
$1 million to get one from the vendors.
Jesus. But yeah, so that's how Fionn accidentally gained all the knowledge in all the world.
Yay.
Ironically by accident. But this is why Fionn is so wise and has that as one of his powers. Now, this is not the only thing that Fionn has.
Oh.
Because
Oh, well.
moving on. God. So moving on to the story of Olin. And I'm glad, Ash, that you're with us because you're going to enjoy this one. So every Samhain, the Phantom Olin Mock Midga. So Olin the Burner, basically. It's a fire demon or fire phantom. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, just checking. So the fire phantom, Olin the Burner, comes out from will come out and terrorize the hill of Tara. And he'll play music on his harp, and every warrior who would hear it would fall asleep. But using a magical spear, Finn was able to become immune to the music, and he was able to not be asleep basically when the phantom came running around the place destroying everything. So Fionn was able to intercept the phantom, kill it, and as a reward he was made leader of the Fianna, replacing Gull, the former leader, and had to swear fealty to Gull had to also swear fealty to him, so you can imagine he's not going to be really happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so Fionn has a magical spear. He has the knowledge of all the world, and he's like still like what, an adolescent at this. So he's become pretty boss.
Mm-hmm.
He's what, like level 5. He's got like some of his early feats and some magic items.
Okay.
He's got a whole gang of like followers.
Yep.
So moving on, then we have trying to figure out how do I pronounce that name. Is that Siobhan? So Fionn was out hunting a fawn, so like a deer, like a young deer. But when he caught it, his hounds Bran and his 2 dogs, because I don't know how to say that name, wouldn't let him kill the deer. And that night it turned into a beautiful woman named Siobhan, who had been transformed into a fawn by a druid, Fair Dorich. The spell had been broken by Dun Allen, Finn's base, where as long as she remained within this place, she was protected by a spell. Don't know what the spell was, but apparently. While here, Fionn married Siobhan. So he married this deer woman.
As you do.
Yep. And some while later, Fionn went on to repulse some invaders, and Siobhan stayed in the fort. Here, Fear Dorich.
Does that make him a furry?
Yeah.
Probably. So some guy managed to capture Fionn though, and used him to tempt Siobhan out of the fort. Whereupon she immediately became a fawn again.
Mm-hmm.
And Fionn searched for her, what he found was a boy whom he named Usheen, who had been raised by a fawn. Usheen, became famous as a bard, but Siobhan was never seen again. And now we've entered into the story of Usheen.
That's a horrible story. So, lady had a baby, dude gets kidnapped, and the kid's raised by a deer?
I mean, the deer's his mother by the sound of it, but...
Uh-huh.
But how's a deer supposed to raise a baby?
Carefully.
Well, how were Romulus and Remus raised by wolves?
Yeah.
Give it a bit of
Magic.
suck.
It's magic. So we'll move on to Fionn and Diarmid. And you're probably not too familiar with Diarmid, but Diarmid is also an interesting character. I'll get into that in a second if this doesn't cover it. So one of the most famous stories of the cycle is High King Cormac Lockhart promises the now aging Fionn his daughter Grania as a bride, but Grania falls instead for a young hero of the Fianna named Diarmid, and the pair runs away together with Fionn in pursuit. The lovers are aided by Diarmid's foster father, a god Angus. Unfortunately, Fionn makes his peace with the couple. Eventually, Fionn makes his peace with the couple. Years later, however, Fionn invites Diarmid on a boar hunt, and the Diarmid is badly gored by their quarry. Water drunk from Fionn's hands has the power of healing. Well, it's another thing that they failed to mention before, is Fionn is also has Jesus powers and can heal people. He is lay on hands. But when Fionn gathers water, he deliberately lets it run through his fingers before he gets back to Diarmid. His grandson Oscar threatens him if or if he does not bring water for Diarmid, but when Fionn finally returns, it's too late and Diarmid has died.
Oh no.
So one of the motifs of Diarmid that they don't mention here actually, that's from the Fenian Cycle, is Diarmid is supposed to be like the most beautiful man in the world, in all of Ireland. And I know there's a Japanese anime that includes Diarmid as one of the heroes in it. Like they have a bunch of mythological heroes, like
Anime does that a lot.
like Greek ones and stuff, but they also include Diarmid randomly. And the symbol of Diarmid is the boar, which is I'm sure you're familiar with from Scandinavian and Anglo-Saxon tradition, is a symbol of masculinity because boars are big, strong, dangerous. They're also a symbol of fertility because
Because I'll fuck
again,
you.
big, strong, and put up quite a fight, shall we say?
Bit rapey.
But yeah. So yeah, Diarmid is has like a deal with the gods that if he ever harms a special thing, then he will be killed, and thus he accidentally harmed a boar and oof, dies. So the Battle of Gowra? I don't know how to pronounce that
All
word.
this old Irish lingo.
Yeah, I can only pronounce certain words and
Yeah.
a lot like Connacht Irish, no problem. But other forms of Irish, I have difficulty with.
But yeah, that's the point I want to make actually, is
Mm.
all this stuff taking place in this all over Ireland, or is there particular regions the time?
From what I can gather, it's mostly along the east coast, from the north all the way down to somewhere around the south.
Okay.
Yeah. And Tara, which is in Meath, so it's in the middle.
Yep.
So between the birth of Oisin and the Battle of Gavra, is the rest of the cycle, which is very long and becomes too complicated for any short summary. Oh, thank you for that information. I've been trying to find ways to sum it up.
So there was a battle and it was cool.
Yeah. Eventually, the High King Cormac dies, and his son. I think this is a joke because his name is Chairbray Life Chair. That looks like someone's fucked with it and messed. So Life Chair wants to destroy. Life Chair, literally spelled Lifechair. Okay, so Life Chair wants to destroy the Fianna because he does not like paying the taxes for the protection of the Fianna.
Yes.
I'm just picturing a floating empty chair, just like no taxes.
So he's an anarcho-capitalist.
776 will commence again.
It's just Alex Jones. Raises an army with dissatisfied chiefs and provokes a war, killing Fionn's servant. Oh
no.
Gull sides with the king against Clan Bascana in the battle. So Gull actually finally swaps sides and joins the baddies. Some stories say 5 warriors murdered Fionn at the battle, while others say he died at the battle of the Fjord of Brea, killed by Eilachmach Dovbren. In any other case, only 20 warriors survived the battle, including Ush, who is, I think, is supposed to be Fionn's son. So I can spoil that at this point.
That's
And
that's
Cumhaill.
a brutal one.
Yeah. So Oisin is, I think, Fionn's son with the fairy woman.
All I keep hearing is Pusheen.
Oisin.
I said this last time as well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Pusheen. She's a cute fat cat.
Sorry for the
Who's this?
squeaking, it'll almost be over.
Can
Pusheen's
you
an
show me a
anime.
picture of Pusheen? Oh, hear myself back. That's fine. So I'm just quickly going through here. So yeah, anything interesting come to mind with that quick overview?
The Fenian Cycle so far just sounds like a bunch of civil wars and stuff going on between. Well, not really civil wars because there isn't a nation state. It's just a bunch of
Yeah.
petty kingdoms just battering each other pretty much. And there's a couple
Oh
of
yeah.
shanty
That's
and stuff.
that's just Ireland in general as much
Yeah,
of petty
like-
kingdoms, which eventually
Fucking
become the
right.
counties, and that leads into our modern rivalries with each other over like sports teams. Where I don't know if you were on earlier, but I was talking with Han and Gren and with Dom present, and Dom is from Kilkenny and I'm from Galway. Galway's greatest rival in hurling is Kilkenny.
Ooh,
So yeah, those
challenge Dom
Kilkenny
to the
cats.
hurler.
Yeah, those Kilkenny cats will never defeat the tribesmen, the Galway tribesmen. But yeah, like things like that kind of survive from the olden days. But yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the story of Tristan and Isolde.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not too sure.
I think it was Ridley Scott did a film based on it in the early 2000s.
Yeah, Tristan sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's about this. I think he's a Saxon warrior, but he could be an Angle. I'm not entirely sure. But he's an English warrior guy, and he goes to Ireland to represent his lord at some festival thing, and he wins the fight and wins this woman that he falls in love with, called Isolde. But what they didn't realize is he was competing on behalf of his lord, so he won her for him. So he has to give her to him, but they're like, oh shit, because they fall for each other. And
So it's like Shrek.
it gets awkward. Yeah, it basically. But yeah, the whole idea of originally comes from the story of Diarmaid and Gráinne. But yeah, and then eventually it comes Romeo and Juliet is also based on Tristan and Isolde, as is apparently Shrek. So
Imagine just women or just winning and trading women like their livestock. Like, we've got this prize woman here.
yeah.
Just kill each other and you get to win her.
Well, she's
Am I
a
gonna say
princess.
so?
Well, she's a princess, and that's a king.
Oh, I thought it was just a woman.
Yeah, no, it's not a random woman. that would be just weird.
Just like off the street. Like, all right, come on, Martha, we're gonna go sell you.
We got
Ash, this wasn't cattle, this was a racing horse. Those are different.
Actually, the cat was probably more valuable.
I do have to say, I mean, this is typical because it's, a legend and a folktale and all that stuff, so
Yeah.
it has to be cool, but every single one of these stories is, like, really romantic, where it's like, nobody falls in love with a young shad man. Like, it's
Shad man.
super idealist.
Chad, man.
Yeah. There's loads of young chads in Irish mythology.
It's most mythology. You don't tend to get older people in mythology.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be like this guy and be a chad.
Be me. Be he.
Be chad. No.
But yeah, I reckon that these stories would, like, if real, would be describing events around like the Iron Age, maybe.
Oh yeah, well, what time period are we in? I know
I think we're in the Iron Age. maybe.
we're in the Iron Age. Cool.
Was
So
my
things-
776 joke relevant earlier? Or is it too early or late?
Yeah, 770.
7.
No, I think that's the early period. Maybe 76.
just 76 will commence again.
Yeah, it's 70.
Oof.
Actually, no, because it's still before that even, because it's pre-Anno Domini. So
We're in BC still, right?
yeah, we're still in BC.
Okay, so 1776 can commence again, still works.
Yeah,
Maybe.
76 BC. We'll commence again.
Yeah, that's
I
what
don't
was
think we're that
thinking.
far back.
Yeah, like,
I
I'm
think that's
derailing.
Bronze Age, but yeah.
Excellent.
But yeah. Oh, you're giving me content because I've already everything in front of me.
Alright. Well, if you need padding, do let me know. I have lots of unhelpful questions.
Oh yeah, go ahead, fire away.
I mean, not necessarily related to the current topic.
I have. Hold on.
We're echoing to.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
it's not too bad.
I'm
Really.
driving, so I can't.
Uh-huh.
I can't really help it.
No worries.
So what's the question, Ash?
So
Oh, I was gonna read my jokes.
yeah,
I'm
go
sitting
ahead.
in traffic. Okay, they're not necessarily good ones. They're more like phrases jokes, not like question jokes. Two archaeologists aren't going out with each other. They're carbon dating. And I already told y'all this one, but what do you call a Jewish archaeologist?
No.
Torah the Explorer. There was another one that I had that I thought was funny, but I can't find it.
Oh, fair enough. Ooh.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to ask then, Cross,
Yeah.
was, as it seems pertinent to the current situation, and the echo from Ash is...
Sorry.
That's fine. I'm just, I
I
might have to
can-
mute you as all.
Well, I think I'll have to do it because they're on my server. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah, but I
myself.
can just mute her for me, just temporarily while I'm asking the question.
Ah. Oh, that's
Um,
right. It's going to you.
It's going through
isn't it?
me, yes. So my question would be, is there any archaeological evidence or things you can work from of what the procedure would be in times of plague in sort of medieval Iron Age times? Because presumably, not everyone died. I'm working on this elaborate theory, right, where not everyone died.
So you're referring. Well, you're obviously. I think your interest in that is coming through. Is it COVID-19?
Yeah, NCOV, whatever it's called.
Coronavirus.
The new
we've
fancy
been-
one from China.
Yeah, we've been following the virus.
Yes, and it's totally not just because I'm very boring.
But well, I don't know much about pre-medieval stuff, but I can tell you about the Black Plague in Ireland, just briefly, and don't quote me specifically because I might be slightly wrong. But given from what I've heard and stuff, the Black Plague, when it got to Ireland, it got here through Genoa. A ship came to Dublin, I think, from Genoa.
Where
There
is
was,
Genoa? Isn't that in Spain?
Yeah, it's
Italy.
Italy. Yeah.
Italy, that's...
Yeah. So if you imagine the boot, you know, the leg of Italy,
Oh,
with
yeah.
like the top, like I don't know, like the tie at the top.
Mhm.
On the right side where it curves is Venice, and on the opposite side is Genoa.
It's
Okay.
the left hand of Venice. It's like-
The left side. Yeah. So they were great rivals, and they kind of did the same, like sea trading and whatnot. And yeah, that's how the plague got into Europe. Was the Genoese who got scared because the Mongols were attacking, ran away and brought the disease into Europe.
Oh.
Cowards.
Because
Yeah.
I've seen
That's
lots
the
of
point.
stuff about its origins and everything, and people basically just going, so China has a really old civilization that really hasn't adapted that much to, say, you know, hygiene standards.
Actually, we have the name. We know the name of the person who caused the Black Plague to start. His name was Yanni Beg. It was the Khan of the Golden Horde, which I think is like the region around Ukraine. But yeah,
Yeah.
while besieging the city of Kaf, he used diseased bodies and fired them in over the walls. and the Chinese who were inside were like, "Oh shit, it's the fucking Mongols," and attempted to escape, bringing the disease with them.
Oh, lovely. Well, presumably they had to
And
get the diseased bodies from somewhere.
Yeah, well, I guess the animals and rats
Maybe.
or whatever would have
Maybe
picked
it
up
came
the
from China.
picked up the disease and brought it with them on the boat.
Yeah.
There's rats everywhere.
I'm coronavirus man.
So anyway, by the time it gets to Ireland, because that was the original question, and I kind of had to do a bit of backstory.
Ah, no worries.
It really only affects the major populated areas. As probably with the coronavirus, it would probably only affect like major populated areas where, well, this is a virus that's spread airborne, possibly,
Not.
or at least possibly.
I'd imagine most of the historical understanding of stuff like the Black Death and everything is sketchy at best.
Yeah. Well, they understood the Black Plague to be spreading airborne, but not necessarily by bacteria or viral. They thought it was the bad smell that was causing it.
Ah.
So that's why those beaked masks were invented, to have a bunch of like nice smelling things at the end of the beak, so that when you're walking around, all you smell is good things, even if you're like walking through a bunch of viruses and bacteria.
I'd
To
forgotten.
soothe the population.
It's to make you feel better. It's literally
It's a placebo that might work.
placebo that kind of did work in a way.
So imagine they wouldn't have caught on if they didn't.
Yeah, but it kind of worked, but not for the intended purpose. Hey Dom, I'm just explaining how plague doctors became a thing, so when the plague got to Ireland, it really only affected major populated areas. So probably Dublin was devastated. I know Galway, where I'm from, wasn't much affected.
I'm guessing it's a
probably
lot of
'cause it's so
coastal
far away.
towns would be where it
Yeah.
spread the fastest because coastal trade.
If it's
I think
the Black
it's-
Death you're talking about, I think half of the population of my town died.
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, the East Coast was far more affected than the West Coast. Galway
Trading
was,
with the Welsh, I see.
Galway was second to London in kind of like popularity, because Galway had stone buildings very early on because it kept burning down. So they replaced all of the buildings with stone ones fairly early on, especially stone roofs, like slate roofs.
Oh, nice. That's
Because,
always big and clever.
yeah, the locals kept burning the town. So by having stone buildings, it was a lot more difficult for them to do that. So having stone buildings, and Galway was second to London in that it had lots of hygienic things already. In that,
Like wells
a lot,
and
you know how,
stuff.
like, not necessarily wells, but you know, like in like medieval towns over in England, or probably usually in Ireland as well. There's usually like a build-up of like refuse in the street. Allegedly, that's not happening in Galway, because there's like street sweepers and all this kind of stuff going on, and probably the rain helped
Oh, yeah.
keep the street clean because it's constantly raining.
When
But,
you need gutters, otherwise the town sinks.
Actually, that's an interesting fact as well. Speaking about rain in the street and rain on the streets, Galway in past times, so like medieval up to the 1600s, is far more prepared for a pedestrian walking in the street than it is now, because there's so many public shelters. So you can walk through the entire city and not get wet. Whereas now you're fucked if it's raining. But yeah, no, there was like lots of like shelters for you to, like places for you to go in out of the rain, underneath. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, Galway kind of different from the rest of the towns in Ireland in that sense, that it didn't get as affected. Probably because it was a lot more hygienic, unintentionally. Well, intentionally, but not in that sense.
Not
Like, they
in,
didn't do it
not
for
so as to avoid plague, but just because, good business.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Galway was very important for trade, but more so in wool trade.
Yeah, because if your
what
population
happens in
doesn't
England-
die on a regular basis, they can, be quite good.
Yeah. Well, the wool trade really picks up more so in England after the plague, because suddenly a lot of people are dead, and that land is empty. And what provides a lot of wealth really quickly? Sheep.
Also,
Because
what do you now mistrust? Anything coming in from outside?
Yeah. So in England, sheep become really popular in production of wool, and that really comes into Galway, and Galway becomes famous for its wool, especially the Lynch family.
Yeah.
Sheep are very popular in Galway,
Ooh.
especially the west of Ireland.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just dabbing on the west of Ireland.
No, I was dabbing on Kenny here. You weren't here, so I couldn't get you to fight. But yeah. But yeah. Interesting fact about the Fina, by the way. The Fina kind of gives ideas to young men throughout medieval Ireland to become like bands of warriors. So this is how we get like bands of like Kern, or like
Football
the word
hooligans?
Kern can also it means young men, but it also becomes to mean bandits, like roaming bandits. Again, another D&D reference. Actually, that's why
yes.
my D&D miniatures I have Kern, because I thought it was funny.
Yes, Ireland, the country where over time we've developed several hundred different terms to explain the lads.
The same thing. It's like so many different terms. But yeah, so the Fina also gives its name to, if I skip all the way down to the bottom, if you're familiar with the Irish Defence Forces, so our military,
The
these
IDF?
I'm not even going to touch that one. So the Irish Defence Forces has a kind of a special forces kind of, which is called the Army Ranger Wing. So they're like they'd be like the modern version of what once would have been the Connacht Rangers, but the Army Ranger Wing would be a newer form of that. And they, in Irish, the name for the Ranger Wing is actually the Fina. They take their name after the Fina. But yeah,
So the lads continue on even to this day in the Irish
Yeah.
Defence Force.
the best warriors that protect the Earth, basically.
Yep.
And go on missions into places in Africa.
I do adore the fact that Ireland
Which we'll not
has
touch.
sustained throughout history just
With
the light
zero
infantry
casualties.
tradition.
That's true as well. Maybe a few injured, but not casual.
Very good Netflix movie.
Alrighty. Oh no, you're thinking of a different Congo.
Still a very good Netflix.
That was the Irish Army under the United Nations. You're thinking of the Siege of Joe Deville. That's a good film if anyone hasn't seen it.
Yeah, it's good. Really solid.
Yeah. Actually, we should watch it someday in the TV room.
It's quite humorous, but maybe we shouldn't get into the whole racial aspect of it. But it's quite humorous when you look at it from that lens.
Fuck the French.
It's kind of
So
like
the-
Rock's
A
Drift,
sentiment
but
I can
it's
get
literally just
behind. Fuck the
French.
French.
With like
I wouldn't
bootleg.
necessarily call it a racial thing, but it's politics within the UN where certain actions are fighting it out, but then these Irish guys are left stranded. But yeah,
Did they have a
The-
bar?
It was a dick
No.
move to have it like censored for a long time. I never even knew about that until that movie.
But one of my favorite things from the movie, and I really want to know if it's real, so perhaps if someone in the audience can actually come back to me with this. But at one point, Skog, the guy, the major, I think he's a major. It's the Irish version, Irish Army version, which I think is Commandant. he's calling the main head guy in head office, or the HQ, and he's like, so you're leaving us all out to die because you're not sending us our reinforcements. So he's like, they're like, is there anything we can do for you? And they're like, yeah, send us a bottle of whiskey. That's like, it's fucking brilliant. Oh, but yeah, it was something like a few hundred lads stuck against a couple of thousand ex-Belgian, what are they called? Legionnaires, French Foreign Legion guys.
I wasn't sure because again, this is getting into the whole racial thing a little bit. Most of the soldiers in the film, the Africans, I find just seem to be like workers or something, like not really.
Well, because they're just workers who had just been given guns.
Because the only professional guy is the commander, who's like an actual Frenchman.
He's ex-French Foreign Legion and well decorated. That's why they didn't kill the Irish when they captured them.
Yeah, because the commander was somewhat vulnerable. Yeah,
because he respected that they stood to the last man and used every bullet.
I do love the way it ends when he just kind of looks at them and is like, can we stop fighting now, bro?
But yeah, like their orders were to hold that position. They held that position until they were banned by their superiors in the United Nations. So they did their job basically. Because this was the first time Ireland was involved in a major engagement since the country became independent. That was not acknowledged by our defense forces until I think 2005.
Damn.
So they were those fellas, after being brave and doing something really fucking badass, were treated like shit by Ireland and the United Nations.
What's that? The United Nations treating someone they're using like shit? Who could have done such a thing?
Specifically,
has anyone been to Rwanda recently?
It is interesting because the film does kind of paint it as while the government doesn't recognise what they did, the people and the army as a whole kind of great
not a fucking
moment of pride kind of as an independent nation. It's the first proper military action they've had.
There was a few others in the 60s, 70s, and in Lebanon. I have a friend of mine who was present at Fort Shamrock, but actually I have a few friends of mine who've been present at Fort Shamrock during.
That sounds horribly stereotypical.
No, something happened there. I'm not entirely sure. There was I'm not sure if I'm mixing it up with a different event, but I know there was an incident where the Dutch army accidentally mistook civilians for enemy combatants or something and opened fire on them.
That's the Danish doing a war crime.
Look, it's just target practice.
I know there was an incident where an accident happened, and then as a counter-attack, they attacked Fort Shamrock.
They after the Lucky
Irish.
Charms. Sorry.
But yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think that might have been it. But I could be confusing two separate events.
It's the Irish getting shat on for the Hollandaise doing something stupid. No, sorry, it's the Danish, not the Hollandaise.
Sure, if you watch, it's a bit of a spoiler for the film, but
if it's historical, is it really spoilers?
Well, in the Siege of Jodeville, the attack on Jodeville by the African / Belgian team.
It's kind of hard to define who the enemies were because
it's the miners, Belgian miners in Africa, who were using local Africans as.
That was it. They were a corporation, weren't they? That were in the
it's
war.
the anarcho-capitalist again. I forgot my original point. What happened was the Indian got confused and attacked a radio station thinking there was enemy combatants inside and threw grenades through the windows.
Ooh.
Were really civilians who were hiding.
Oh, yeah, I
Oh,
think I remember
dear.
that. That was unfortunate.
Yeah. They mistook their orders or something. There was a huge for some reason, and it was an accident. Basically, these Indian guys would have been special forces in the British Empire, and then India becomes independent, and so they're trained for like really intense combat, but they're doing something that shouldn't be that. But I guess there was a confusion in the orders or something, where
So they were like, we can finally show that all of our training has been, well worth it.
yeah,
Fuck, we blew up civilians on our first encounter.
And then
like
your
the
dog
Irish
barks,
guys.
you hear a squeal, and then you see a grenade come in through the window. What?
Like,
When you
it-
send in
it's-
shock assault troops for peacekeeping.
Like, I think it's very important to mention the Irish guys much like new. They hadn't experienced a proper battle before, whereas the Indian guys would have. But they had some confusion in the orders or something where they thought that there was enemies inside, but there wasn't.
Yeah, like the
I mean,
execution
as soon as you
was
throw a
too
grenade into a room, there's enemies inside.
Yeah, like they believed that there was enemies inside, so their orders are to not take chances and throw in grenades before you enter, which I think is a standard practice in the American military at the moment.
When in doubt, yes.
Yeah,
To be honest,
the
if you
tricky
throw
one.
a grenade into a room and you enter it, there won't be any enemies inside.
Or anybody who was in that room is definitely now an enemy.
So if you imagine that, but like in the 60s, yeah, that's what kind of happened in the radio station, where the Indians probably chucked a couple of grenades inside
do.
before they went in. Mhm. Yeah.
And we may never know.
Oh, emerald. Yeah.
I've just realised I still have Ash muted. Whoops.
As an American, when you think of Irish people, you think leprechauns, four-leaf clovers, drinking, redheads, and the color emerald green. Well, the fun fact is, the creation of the color emerald green is really fucking terrible. Because a dye company and a lead company decided that they wanted to make a new kind of dye. And they made this really beautiful, rich color of green. It was the brightest color of green they'd ever seen before, and it was really popular. Everybody loved it. It was made in clothes, carpets, everything that people had back in 1814, that's when it was made out of this beautiful color that they called emerald green. The only downside was it was made with arsenic. High dosages of arsenic, which if most people don't know, that's common in rat poisoning. It's a poison. And so because people were wearing clothes and most of the blankets and everything in their house was made with arsenic and such high dosage, it started to eat people's skin. So people were having their skin fall off for wearing this really beautiful color that they liked. And in one case, a lady completely turned green. Her eyeballs turned green, and she started foaming at the mouth before dying. But she was foaming green foam. So yeah, the color emerald green that most people know Ireland for was made by arsenic and killed lots of people. So the color green is actually associated with death more than the color black, actually.
Nurgle is typing.
Because... And it was made by a German company, not even an Irish company. A German company.
I'm not surprised.
IG father. It's fucking
Have
Yeah,
you
it
ever heard?
says-
poisoning him.
But yeah, the lady had bought a green pair of gloves, and she wore the gloves so often that her skin turned green, and so did all the rest of her. But yeah, that color became so popular,
Lamau
With people.
orcs.
but it no longer kills. But
Yeah,
it's funny though, because
generally
when the
dye
color,
that kills the customer is seen as a not a good marketing point.
But the funny thing is, it was called a stunning killer colored green. And little did they know, it was an actual killer, because it killed lots of people. So yeah, I thought that was interesting because you think of emerald green, you think of the Irish, and you teach people about Ireland. So there you go. That's my fun bit of information for you before I leave. I'm almost to my second job.
Before you leave, have you ever heard of Mad as a Hatter?
Yeah, from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
The Mad
Do you know-
Hatter in Alice in Wonderland.
Do you know where it comes from?
No.
It comes because a hatter would usually be exposed to the chemicals from the dyeing process, thus affecting their brain significantly.
It's, I believe, mercury specifically.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I do. I don't know that, but I do know back in the day, especially with like British people, because they wear bowlers, like the rounded hats or whatever. Well, bowlers, because I used to own one, how you keep a bowler round is you put it upside down. So most hats, you leave it right side up. But a bowler, because it is rounded, you normally put it on, the top of the hat goes on the bottom, so it sits upside down. Well, back in the day, from what I've read, to give them their rounded shape, they were actually sewn onto people's heads to give them that rounded shape. So they would stitch the fabrics to a person's skull and then have to remove the stitches when the hat was done.
I find that a little suspicious, actually.
To give it...
Like, how are you going to stitch it to someone's skull?
I mean, into the skin,
you stitch it to
presumably.
the skin. Yeah, you stitch it to the skin.
Oh, okay.
But it would sit on a person's head,
Yeah.
and then the hatter would stitch it, but they would stitch it to the person's skin, and then have to cut the stitches
That
from their
sounds
flesh.
impractical because bowler hats wouldn't be the right shape. Whereas if you use a bowl, like a wooden one, generally you steam them if it's a sort of felt hat.
Yeah.
At least that's what they do in all the things I've seen on stuff like the how it's made.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying
Squeaky,
that
sorry?
is one way. That is one way that I've seen that bowlers used to be made back in the day.
Alright, that's an odd one. I've not heard that before.
That sounds somewhat suspect.
Yeah, it does.
Could be an old folks' tale.
Possibly. Next week is our fourth and final cycle of which is the cycle of the kings, which is the final cycle of Irish mythology, which is also referred to sometimes as the historical cycle. So in that we'll be discussing the story of Brian Boru, and next time I might actually have pictures. Because I took part in the anniversary of the 2014 anniversary of the Brian Boru war and the Battle of Clontarf. Brian Boru is credited with driving the Vikings out of. Pity we don't have Grenor Pasta here at the moment, so I can heckle them. Those dirty Norwegians.
Could be worse. They could be Swedes.
Oof. Oh no. But yeah, so next week we'll discuss Brian Boru and the Battle of Clontarf and stuff. And also, we have dates, proper historical dates for these people, because this is the early medieval period we'll be getting in.
Where people wrote things down.
Yeah. I was going to say, we've passed the Romans at this point.
Yeah, the Romans.
Romans like Ireland, what's that?
I guess we can mention briefly that we have no hard evidence for Romans' presence in Ireland, with the exception of near the hill of Tara. Yeah, no worries. There is a rectangular site that that someone whose name escapes me believes to be a Roman fort or something, or a fort or villa or something. I'm not entirely sure. But whether or not it is still up for debate. They're still working on that to tell what it is. However, there is some Roman artifacts coming from the place. So possibly there are the odd Roman artifact. from around Ireland that we've found, specifically red, this kind of red shards, but they're not from a specific pot. It's more likely that the pot has been broken somewhere else, and these shards were brought there.
Yeah,
And there are specifically Roman artworks on them.
it sounds like it might just be trade goods, honestly. That came
It's probably we think it's souvenirs from like traveling to Rome, but they're dated to kind of later. So it's like if you travel to Rome to see, I don't know, where the Pope or something, you'll get one of these pottery things to say that you were in Rome, to show that you visited Rome.
Then you
Kind of
drop it
just
on the
like
way.
I imagine
Well-
they knew about Ireland, but they just are like, it's a bit inconvenient to go there, like, at this point.
They referred to Ireland as Hibernia.
Yeah.
So yeah, not entirely wrong. And we do have evidence that there was trade with the Romans in and the Irish, because we have silver plates. And when I say silver plates, as in like cookware, I don't mean them as it being in full plate form. I mean that some Irish guy got sold a plate or got traded a plate in, for like furs or something. So they handed him a plate, and not knowing what this damn thing was for, he just cut it up into pieces. And it's kind of used as like a currency.
What if you have it
like
by,
basically.
weight of gold, weight of silver, weight of gold type things?
Yeah. So if you go to the National Museum in Dublin, you can actually see in the treasury some of these silver plates, Roman silver plates, where they have been hacked up into measures, probably by weight, to be used as trade goods. But yeah, like other than that, there's not much evidence for Romans in Ireland. But yeah, we kind of skipped over the Romans because mythology is inconvenient that way.
Yeah. Mythology doesn't care about your history.
Once we've covered some of the kind of mythologies, we'll go back and we'll start with the archaeology more in depth, because I'm kind of doing mythology to try and generate some interest in the show. Also for myself to see what kind of interest there is. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the view count and stuff to see how many people are watching. To see if it's worth pursuing, if you know what I mean. But yeah, we have some interest in certain topics. I know Ash wanted to discuss the Irish famine. We can also discuss the I guess the what is it called? The 1216 kind of Scottish invasion of Ireland. Also, I was asked...
The Ulster
We'll
Scots.
probably have to cover the whole fact that Scotland was basically colonised by Ireland and how that
Yeah, the Dalriada and whatnot. I meant to cover that in the last... it should have been now around with the Iron Age, but there's too much stuff to look up and I just didn't get around to it.
can sort it next time.
We'll do it in a future episode. Someone asked me, I can't remember if it was you, Han, or if it was someone else, talking about pre-Ice Age civilization.
Yes.
We'll talk about megalithic or Mesolithic, Paleolithic and Mesolithic stuff.
I believe there was discussion of Doggerland.
We'll discuss Doggerland when we do that as well, actually, because those would be related.
Oh, good.
What is Doggerland?
So Doggerland will extend from off the coast of Ireland all the way to Scandinavia. So it will include Britain and Scotland.
As I believe the North
Iceland,
Sea is not very deep, which is one of those things that's kind of difficult to process because it's a sea. And it's, you can't see the bottom, but it's not, I think it's about 20 meters in most places.
Yeah, it's not very deep.
It's not very deep,
And
and I gather fishermen regularly, at least I used to see it regularly, pull up like random bits and pieces in their nets just of stuff that's come off the bottom.
Yeah.
So like, oh look,
Yeah,
here's, like a fucking like Ice Age lion skull.
Oh,
You
he's a
have to
mammoth.
find.
Yeah, and
quite
stuff
a
like that. And it's just like, oh, okay. Well, I wanted fish.
I'm just posting a link there for Dom to the map of a map of Dockland.
Well, you know,
There's been a woolly mammoth that's been dragged up by fishermen. There's
Is
been a
there
couple of megalodons, which are the. Is it megalodon?
Megalodons are the big sharks.
Yeah.
Oh, what am I thinking of? I'm thinking,
Megalosaurus?
Megalotherium? The big, like, sloth boys?
no,
Megalosaurus.
no, I said it wrong because I'm thinking of too many things at once.
Understandable. We are being somewhat...
Megalosaurus.
Megalosaurus.
The
you
Irish
just
elk.
be making that up for all I fucking know.
So Megaloceros as opposed to Megalosaurus. Because fucking
Megalosaurus.
Ark Survival Evolved us that. It's like,
Yeah.
Megalosaurus, nice, that huge, like, dinosaur saddle. Oh wait, no, it's the deer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big
Yeah.
deer, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's not as impressive.
In fact, Megalosaurus. I pronounce that with an S.
Cerus,
But
not Saurus.
yeah,
Saurus is lizard.
That's just the regional thing. But yeah, so Megalosaurus is used in Warhammer Fantasy as the
High
leader
elves,
of
isn't
the
it?
elves' mount.
Massive
Leader
fuck
of
off
the
deer.
elves' mount. Yeah, he rides one of
Huge
those.
bitch.
Yeah, and there's a reference in the D&D lore actually to Megalosaurus as well as giant elks. But yeah, and especially the white giant elk,
Oh yeah,
Which
the
is
white
a-
elks are always the
white deer.
the
From,
popular
mythology.
ones.
Yeah.
So there's a pub inn. What I think it's technically an inn in my parents' village called the White Hart.
Mhm. Ah,
So
referring to the white. I think it's a stag heart.
I
Yeah.
think so. I think it's Hearts and Hinds.
Mm.
I'm not too sure, but I know it's where Queen Elizabeth I stayed briefly at one point.
Oh.
Because, when travelling between
Mhm.
places, inns,
Yeah.
and having had, Queen of England stay in your place is pretty pretty good. I wonder if they still
pretty
teach that when, to like the kids in the village, when they're like doing the whole history of the village thing.
Mhm. Just a
'Cause
quick point as well about Irish elk. Because when I had met Peter Woodman, we discussed actually the Irish elk and slash Megalosaurus. In that he pointed out that interestingly, even though it's called an elk, it's not an elk.
Huh.
Actually, a deer. I didn't know that until he pointed that out.
Wow.
Yeah.
why must the Irish continue to lie?
Oof. But yeah, these
It's a big
these
fucking deer is what it is.
these animals, well, even though they're kind of be from all over Europe, there's even cave paintings in France, and they'd go as far as maybe, well, possibly China, but definitely Serbia or Siberia. Yeah,
Bit of a
Siberia,
difference.
I thought I meant Serbia, but yeah, no, probably Serbia as well. But yeah, they're definitely in Serbia or Siberia. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll discuss the Ice Age in a future episode.
Well, it's the
and,
Ice
we'll
Age
do
and the
more on
before
the-
the Ice Age.
Yeah, we'll discuss
What
the
about our
megafauna.
past super futuristic civilization that we had that is gone now? Is there an episode about that eventually?
What the?
Let's say
Well,
if you want to be
we already discussed the two of the Donan and they're
let's say
massive fucking badass.
if you want to be controversial at some point, you could always talk about the medieval warm period and bits like that.
Ooh.
Or the
possibly.
Sphinx water erosion hypothesis.
Oh,
Could be interesting.
Oh, I've seen a thing where
we
it's
might look at it
Hey.
because that one is an interesting one.
Look at the thing about humanity not actually coming from Africa, but coming from swamps in like Middle Europe.
Yeah,
Not something like
I
that.
think we might ask Carlos to jump in on that one.
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
that seems like his
I
jam.
think it
Carlos
might have been from him. I heard
Discuss
that.
that Sargon.
Also, I'd just like to say we were born from the swamp, made men by the undone by the swamp.
We're from the heart of the bog, is that what you're saying?
And to the
Yes.
swamp we shall return.
Yes.
God damn it. You see, the audience won't get that.
They might.
Yeah. But yeah. So,
Inside jokes.
I guess we've been talking now for about an hour and 10 minutes, so, Oh, hey, Duffman. I just seen the chat. So yeah, does anyone have anything they'd like to plug before we finish up?
I might be running a
Peeling
D&D
Guy
game on...
show.
Yeah, Peeling Guy show.
The Peeling Guy
Peeling
show.
Guy show happening
It should be-
sometimes.
There should be a link to Dom's channel below. Skog.
I intend to run my game on Thursdays now. However, that may or may not be happening due to other people also moving their game to Thursdays.
Oh,
We'll see how that works.
we spoke with Gren. He's working on moving it to next
Yeah.
week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
Han, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Not really.
No. So Stu, should I mention the thing that we were discussing earlier?
You can if you want. We will hopefully, I'll just go over it, be finishing up the Cross of Iron 40k game very, very soon. I'll give an exact date, hopefully this Sunday, we'll see how things pan out. And your boy Cross may be joining as some kind of guardsman, or maybe a tech priest, or whatever. That's easy to see.
Cross of Fire now featuring more cross.
Yeah, pretty much.
But will they be burning?
Oh no,
Oh,
we will find out. Watch it and find out. So yeah, I might be
Dragon Ball Z.
joining the cast of Cross of Iron. But yeah, thanks for watching. Below should be a link to the what's it called? Streamlabs. It should be Ash's one because I said I'll help throw
However,
some more funds towards the
if-
doggos.
If you donate to Cross, he can get better internet. Although, now that because I'm not being a fucking idiot and don't have the server... Apparently my server was set to US West. West. Not even East. West. So that's probably why it's been so terrible, because I think you've only cut out once this entire over an hour. So that's very much my bad, so I'm very sorry for the previous episodes.
Actually, my internet's been cycling between. I have like my little white box thing that's also mobile internet and my phone internet. So both of them are both on next to each other. So when it cuts out, it automatically jumps up to the other.
Either way, it's better.
Yeah. Today was quite good, even though we weren't as prepared as intended because we've been so busy in the last week. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching. I've been Cool Cross, and we'll see you all next time.
Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.